Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the season debut of Orange Weekly, presented by Krause Health. My name is Brent X. Nate Mink is with me here, and we are ready for some football. And we know you are ready for some football as well. Now, those of you that are familiar with Orange Weekly, that watch the show throughout the football and basketball season, it's going to be a little different this year. Orange Weekly will still be available to you on YouTube and the usual places that it was. But this year, we're going live, baby. So every Thursday at about 1 o'clock here on the Syracuse Orange Facebook page for football, on our YouTube page as well, we will be live and you can participate in the show as well. There is a comment section. We can see your comments. If you're commenting on Facebook and YouTube, you can comment. You can comment along with us, talk some Syracuse football with Nate and I as we go through the program. So welcome to another season as the Orange get ready to take on Ohio Saturday night in Athens, Ohio. We've got a guest who's going to join us shortly. Russ Eisenstein is the play-by-play voice of the Ohio Bobcats. We're going to check in with him here shortly. But Nate, hello, sir. You ready for another season?
I'm ready to go live, baby. I love it. Let's go.
Here we are. So, Nate, before we bring in Russ and get a perspective here on this Ohio team, what are you thinking as this season begins? It has been so interesting to watch how this team has attempted to build back up a 1-10 season. They bring in Garrett Schrader, the transfer quarterback. The college sports world turned upside down during the offseason, the transfer portal, name, image, and likeness, all kinds of crazy stuff. But here we are, ready to kick off another season. What's the prevailing thought you have as Syracuse goes into this opener against Ohio?
How do I feel about this team? It depends which day you're asking me this question, Brent, because it is so volatile. It's such a malleable program to try to wrap your arms around. It's about 70 and sunny today in Syracuse. So there's a fall chill in the air. It's football weather. And I look up and down this roster, Brent. This is a different team than the one we saw take the field a year ago. Night and day difference from the 1-10 team that Dino Babers fielded last season. That team, obviously, needless to say, was just absolutely demoralized because of the pandemic, some racial justice issues that were swirling around the country last summer in particular, took a toll on players' mental health and divided that locker room. And then you look at the on-field injuries that they sustained really from the start of camp all the way through the regular season with, really, really key guys like Andre Sisco and Tommy DeVito. Everything that possibly could have gone wrong for this program last year, I'm pretty sure went wrong outside of the fact that they were able to somehow manage to play all 11 games on their schedule. Now, granted, they lost 10 of them and nobody is happy with those results, but there was a lot of eagerness to flip the switch and turn the page into 2021. And this is a program that a lot of familiar faces are still going to be asked to play key roles for this team, and that might not get a lot of people excited, quite frankly. We're going to have the same starting quarterback in all likelihood for the third season in a row, with the exception of Garrett Schrader coming in as a transfer as maybe that change of pace option. The offensive line for those five guys that are projected to open the year as the starters on Saturday night are the same four who started most of last season. Again, the exception is another SEC transfer in Chris Bleich, who adds some stability and optimism to the interior line of that unit. So I really believe that this team has a diverse personnel grouping in the makeup of this roster, that the results are going to go a lot different than they did last year. Now, that being said, as what we saw time and time again with this place, their best players have to stay on the field at quarterback, at linebacker, at running back, at receiver, up and down the roster. There are certain guys on this roster that they cannot afford to lose if they want to have the type of season that everyone's hoping for.
Yeah, man, last year they lost so many players. It was unprecedented. They barely had enough players to play Notre Dame in the last game of the season. So Nate and I will talk quarterbacks and some of those big picture issues for the Orange. But let's bring him in, folks. He is now live with us on the program. Russ Eisenstein is the play-by-play voice of the Ohio Bobcats. Russ, welcome to another football season. Thanks for joining us on Orange Weekly today.
I appreciate it. I might have to cut it short. I've got a couch that's being delivered today. They give you that 10 to 2 window, and I thought, well, what are the chances that it would be delivered around 1:10 when I'm talking to some good folks from Syracuse? So if Wayfair calls and that doorbell rings, I might have to direct them as to where to put my new couch so I can watch some football starting tonight.
Totally understandable, Russ. That's what happens. This is our first time doing the show live. I think it's appropriate that something like that would happen in the world. We're doing stuff from home and everything. So before the couch arrives, let's get some thoughts from you on this Ohio Bobcats team as they start the season. As you know, they only played 3 games last year, a unique setting. They weren't going to play, then they did play, but only got a few games in. And as they get ready for 2021, what's your feeling on this Ohio team and what they can be this year, Russ?
Yeah, 2020 was, as we know, and everybody's got their own COVID campaign chronicles, but it was wild. There was a power outage before halftime of the first game against Central Michigan. So actually halftime didn't actually happen because they had to push it because of the power outage. And so the first game that we had a disruption. So here we go. All right, great. Power outage. They got the power back on, and Ohio lost to Central Michigan. Then beat 2 of the worst teams in the MAC in Akron and Bowling Green. Then basketball goes to the NCAA tournament. I actually was in the building to see Syracuse beat West Virginia downtown Indianapolis. So that was fun to see. But then we move into spring, and baseball was wild, and here we are. And then Frank Solich retires from coaching. And that's a question I've gotten often. How long is he going to go? And when is he going to retire? And when is the statue going to be built? Well, that leads into Tim Albin being the new head coach now. And it's been surreal, and it just won't stop being surreal. And so this team's picked second in the MAC East, picked third by the coaches of the MAC East. And Syracuse comes to town, a rarity for a Power 5 opponent to come into Athens. Just the second time in my 14 years here. Kansas was the other. And so here we are, ready or not, start of normal college football on Saturday night.
Russ, Dino Babers, the head coach at Syracuse, has been on both sides of this matchup, having coached in the MAC for a couple of years at Bowling Green. And he noted earlier this week that he felt like if he was coaching on the other side, he'd treat it like a bowl game. But I was listening to an interview you did on the radio here in Syracuse this week, and I wanted you to expand on that a little bit because Ohio probably doesn't look at it that way, do they?
No, I wouldn't encourage them to, and I don't believe that they are. To be fair, yes, it is special for a Power 5 opponent to come to town. Yes, that is a rare deal, but to treat it any different than that, I think would be interesting just based on how this program and Frank Solich and Tim Albin have handled things. And that's no disrespect to Syracuse, and that's no disrespect to Dino Babers. Look, I love the MAC. I've been a fan of the MAC my whole life, growing up in the Chicagoland area as a Northern Illinois fan, and seeing this conference through the ups and the downs and the all-arounds and the broadcast in this league as well. All due respect, Syracuse was 1-10 last year. And so I think if Ohio treats it any differently than all right, this is a winnable, beatable Power 5 opponent, then they're not doing it the right way. So sure, I get what Dino's saying, and I hope that Syracuse has a great year. And Dino Babers is a good man and a good head coach. But I don't see Ohio treating this like some kind of we're going off to a big bowl game to play Syracuse sort of deal. They're excited for the opener. They're excited to play in front of fans at Peden Stadium for the first time since 2019. Syracuse, I'm sure, is excited to play in front of fans too. And so that's how I think we look at it, and the team looks at it.
Russ, give us a feel for what Peden is, what Athens is for maybe those Syracuse fans that are going to make the trip.
I've always termed it as Rockwellian collegiate. If you were to take a look at a painting from Norman Rockwell of what a college campus is and should be, I think you see Athens, Ohio. And in the fall, you from our vantage point broadcast booth, you could see the colors change and the rolling hills of Appalachian, Ohio. It is really a very pretty and unique setting because, as we know, there when you go around, especially to Power 5 opponents and in the ACC and elsewhere, there's so much commotion around a stadium. There's highways and there's so much traffic, and how do you get in there? And oh gosh, it's a hassle. Here, yeah, we get 20,000, and there will be more than 20,000, and it will be a great game day atmosphere. But it feels comfortable getting there. It's everything about it is really, really very much classically collegiate. So the stadium layout's a little different. You've got the two corner end zone sections there that are elevated, a big berm on the south side as well. If you look back to the Pitt game in 2005, Frank Solich's first home game here, that thing was loaded up, packed. I believe that fans will be able to sit on that hill for the Syracuse game, but the student section will be packed. The 110 is we feel the best band in the country and has gotten a whole lot of internet and social media buzz. The tailgating is good. The uptown is outstanding. There are 20 establishments on one street, Court Street in Athens. And so all of that wrapped up into a package of higher education and big time college football. And here we go, Syracuse coming to town.
Russ, take me through some of the names that are going to pop off the screen a little bit with this Ohio team, and the names that Syracuse fans should look out for, at least initially. There's always names that emerge in a new season, as you know, but right off the top here, who do you think are the names we're going to hear a lot from the Ohio perspective?
Well, Curtis Rourke at starting quarterback, the brother of Nathan Rourke, who is with the BC Lions in the CFL now. The Canadian pipeline to Cat Country has been incredibly strong. This is a pipeline that is allowed to be built and flourish, and it has been from Canada here to Athens. So he's the guy that wants to work on the run game a little bit more. His passing is outstanding. Armani Rogers, a UNLV transfer, much like Syracuse, with two quarterbacks potentially. Ohio might play two quarterbacks. Demontre Tuggle, running back, I think could be an ACC running back. I think he's durable. I think he's on balance. I think he's strong. He's productive. And we talked, I listened to the lead-in. They're talking about all that was in 2020 and around COVID and social justice. Demontre and Cam Odom, wide receiver for Ohio, have been very, very vocal about, and rightly so, about things that need to change in the country. So they're outstanding on and off the field. Defensively, Will Evans on the defensive line. In the secondary, Alvin Floyd is a captain this year, and I think a player that can make some plays on the defensive side in the secondary. So the punter and kicker, I think, need to take some steps from next year. Not sure who the starting place kicker is going to be as of yet. We'll find out on Saturday, but largely there are playmakers all the way around.
I remember almost a decade ago, Ohio in 2012 went into Beaver Stadium and beat Penn State in what turned out to be an 8-win Penn State team that year. And Ohio, obviously a fabulous ride, 7-0, got their first national ranking in decades, really, that season. When you look at how this roster is made up, and I know we only saw them for 3 games last year, and 2 of them were against, frankly, some of the bottom feeders of the MAC.
Yep.
Do you have a sense on how good this Ohio team is this season?
No, because I think there are question marks, to be sure. And so if we're taking a look at it, and if you were to dissect what a team is and what they've been, obviously there were 3 games last year. And as you mentioned, Akron and Bowling Green, they have something to prove, I think, to themselves and to others. So I've never really gone into a season, and I think a lot of people can say this, I've never gone into a season like this before where you don't know as much as you probably used to know about the teams that you cover. And so it's going to be very interesting to see what Ohio brings to the table. Now, I believe that they have a chance to win the league. I believe that they have a chance to win the MAC East and compete in the 5th MAC championship game since Frank Solich got to town and the continuance of things with Tim Albin. But I think I'm like a lot of other folks where I'm curious to see all of that put into action in game form, because all the other ways that we dissected a season and to get ready for a season, that's out the window now because we haven't seen them for a while. And as you mentioned, the Penn State game, today is the anniversary of that game. And so you look back on what that was, and to be at Beaver Stadium on that day, man, that was wild. And to put words to what happened there, and one of the greatest wins in Ohio program history, was pretty cool. And it's amazing how quickly time flies.
See, Russ, I got to jump in here because Nate is a Penn State alum. So I don't know if he shares the enthusiasm you just expressed for that day. Right, Nate?
I was in the building that day too, working the game, and Nugget, former SU assistant Fred Reed was a member of Frank Solich's staff that year as well. So there's a little SU tie to that game naturally too. Russ, how's Frank doing these days, if you know, and do you think he'll be at the game on Saturday night?
The second part, I'm not sure. I would guess yes. He has been at a couple of practices, and at one of the practices I was at, all the guys that were in that area working on drills, whatever position groups that were there, they all came over to give Frank some love. So he's doing good. I listened back to the press conference where he announced his retirement, and I actually hadn't watched the whole deal as of yet. I wanted to use a soundbite for our broadcast open, and it was sad to know that he's dealing with something. And I get we're not immune to all that stuff, but Frank was the type of guy that would win a push-up competition against any coach in the country. I'm seriously, at the age that he was at, he's a guy that you would seem to think is just indestructible. So knowing that he's dealing with some sort of health issue is tough because we all care about him and we hope the best for him. But when I've seen him at practice, he's looked good. He's obviously committed to his health. He said that if he wanted his players to feel that way, he better do it as well. And so hopefully he's there on Saturday, because he allowed me to say some really cool words and broadcast some really cool moments during his time here. And I hope he does well.
Well, Dino said that this Ohio program has a lot of old Nebraska in it, which I guess is a better compliment than saying they have some new Nebraska in it these days.
It's funny. I'd go back to Omaha College World Series. This may or may not surprise you all, but I'm a huge college sports nerd. And so going to the College World Series is something that I've done in my time here. I saw Kent State when they were there, and that was really cool. But if I wore Ohio stuff, without a doubt, there'd be Nebraska fans that would come up and say that they miss him at Nebraska and how's Frank doing. And we've had Nebraska folks listen to our broadcast as well, which is pretty cool. And I hope that continues with Tim, who was an assistant at Nebraska as well. It should be fun moving forward with this new era of Bobcat football.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's been almost 20 years since Frank's been at Nebraska, and some might say they haven't been right since, and you can say a lot about maybe some parallels with this place too.
Yeah, I think you could look at what has happened with Nebraska, and it's a case of elevated or maybe overinflated expectations. Who knows on that kind of stuff? And at first, I didn't want to necessarily talk about that with Frank in my early years here. But the more and more he's a proud Husker. He cares about the program a great deal, and he cares about Scott Frost a great deal. I know that. And I think Syracuse fans can go back to what Paul Pasqualoni did at Syracuse and the winning that was done during that time. And you get spoiled with consistency. At Ohio, it's been a consistent winner for Frank Solich. And there is a segment of the fan base that wants to take it further and further, as everybody should. I think the 10-win season for Syracuse a couple of years ago showed what's possible. And hopefully for Syracuse fans, that there are more of those closer to 10-win seasons as opposed to the 1-win season from last year.
Well, Russ, it's great to be talking football in general. Again, I'm really looking forward to this game. I'm intrigued by this game. I really appreciate your time today, and enjoy that new couch, my friend.
Yeah, man, I got
it shortly.
I got a missed call during this, so I ignored that. Hopefully I could run them down here to get that new couch. Hey, enjoy it. Good luck on this live venture. You guys look and sound great, and should be a fun one on Saturday.
Thank you, Russ. We appreciate it, my friend.
Thank you.
That's Russ Eisenstein, folks. He is the play-by-play voice of the Ohio Bobcats. Thank him for his time today and coming on the program with us there. And some great thoughts there about Frank Solich, and certainly our thoughts are with him as he's dealing with health issues. And Tim Albin's been there for, I think, 15 years. 7 of their top 10 scoring teams have been in the last 10 years, Nate. So I feel like that Tim Albin is just going to kind of keep the train rolling, maybe put in a couple of wrinkles there. You heard Russ mention there, like Syracuse, they had a quarterback competitions, not to say we won't see the other quarterback get in there, the UNLV transfer who got on the field a lot last year. But of course, the biggest story in the offseason was the quarterback situation here, Nate, with Garrett Schrader being added to the mix, the competition Tommy wins QB1. And I thought you wrote a great piece today about this. People should check it out on syracuse.com and just the connection between Tommy DeVito and Dino Babers. And look, your quarterback is always attached to the hip of the coach and vice versa. But Nate, as you wrote, Dino is pretty much all in with Tommy. His fate is pretty much lined in with Tommy emerging this year, hopefully staying healthy and being the quarterback we all thought he could be.
It's not a true apples to orange comparison regarding the college and the NFL game, but I when you look around, it's very unusual for a head coach and a quarterback to be together for 5 or maybe even 6 years, because Tommy does have another year of eligibility yet. But I will say that it just, the feeling I have going into this season is that if things do not work out this year, that they're going to part ways. And you have a transfer in Garrett that's waiting in the wings, ready to step in, wanting to be QB1 in his own right. That if you just get the sense that if things start to go off track again and they do make that switch to Garrett at some point this season, it's going to be hard to go back to Tommy. And on the flip side of that coin, quite frankly, that if it does turn out to be as special as everyone hopes it is, and they do have a special season that culminates with a bowl victory, Tommy's 23 years old. It's no slam dunk that he will choose to come back for a 6th year at 24. He might be ready to move on and take his shot at the pro level. I think either way, I'm leaning more towards this being their last chance to really seal that legacy up than anything else.
Shout out to Jermaine, who I see in the chat, one of our regulars throughout the year in our post-game shows, which will be kicking in again, folks. We'll be live here on the Facebook page and Syracuse Orange Sports on YouTube doing a live post-game as we did throughout the football and basketball seasons last year, and certainly looking forward to that. And you guys are welcome to chime in the comments, ask Nate and I some questions, and just tell us how you think this football team's going to be this year. And Nate, there's been a lot of focus on the offense, but I'm intrigued by the defense in the sense that I think that 3-3-5 defense gets a high approval rating. I think fans like what they saw there last year. A lot of young guys get on the field, and Mikel Jones, who has 4 interceptions right there at the top of the country in that category. We know how good that secondary was. Congratulations to Trill Williams, by the way, who sticks on the Miami Dolphins roster. I think we knew Andre Cisco and Ife Melifonwu were going to stick on their respective rosters, and Jacksonville and Detroit being the high draft picks they were. Garrett Williams is the anchor there, but Nate, there's a lot of young talent in that secondary, and I'm curious to see how Deuce Chestnut, one of the highest rated recruits Syracuse has had, steps in there. Ben LaBrosse, there's been a lot of talk about him this week, about being one of the more athletic players on the team, and there he is listed as the starting free safety. And, Jihad Carter and Rob Hanna, and some of these names we saw a lot of last year, Nate. And, I guess one of the benefits in a 1-10 season, if you can take anything from it, was a lot of young guys got on the field and come in with game experience this year.
No doubt. 1 through 11, 1 through 15 on that defensive side of the ball, I think can play in the ACC. No doubt. It was absolutely imperative that they returned the 3 seniors up front on the defensive line that they were able to bring back for another year in Black, Williams, and Jonathan. I think Dino Babers said it best earlier in the summer. Had they not gotten those guys back, there wouldn't be a lot to talk about with this team or with this defense in particular, if you had to turn over your defensive line to really a wave of new faces on top of the youth that you have back in the secondary as well. And Brent, selfishly, we talk a lot about how they have talent at linebacker with Mikel Jones and Stephon Thompson and Marlo Wax and Jeff Canton, and we talked about the senior laden defensive line. The secondary has a surefire NFL guy in Garrett Williams, and they're starting a really talented freshman in Chestnut on the other side. But what would this defense look like if they were able to bring back Trill, Ife, and Cisco, who all had eligibility for this year?
It'd be one of the best in the ACC. I think it'd be one of the best in the ACC because McKinley Williams is going to be a bit of a mystery because he's been dealing with an illness, and we'll see if he's out there Saturday and how effective he's going to be. But you got 3 veterans up front: Josh Black, McKinley Williams, Kingsley Jonathan. Playmakers at linebacker. Keith agrees with you, by the way, in the comments here, Nate. I think Marlo Wax is the sky's the limit for him. I think he's the next big playmaker on that defense. Add those guys back in, 3 NFL level secondary players to add a fourth with Garrett and the names we mentioned as the depth in a 3-3-5.
That's the key word, the depth.
Depth.
That's the key word.
And you know what, Nate, as we've seen, even with the team struggling the past couple of years, Syracuse has been at the top of the country in takeaways the past 2 years. So, that ball hockey mentality that Tony White's defense brings. And while we're talking about it here, I know there's a lot of focus on the offense, and that's the Dino Babers brand. And obviously things, kind of went off the rails there last year. But do you feel like it could be the defense that actually leads the way here for this team, considering the question marks that have to be filled offensively?
I'll say this. If the defense has to carry the load again, this isn't going the way it's intended to go.
Yeah.
You gotta, look at the national, and again, I'm talking about the upper echelon of the sport. Look at the last 2 national champions, LSU and Alabama, had historically great offenses. Historically great. If you do not score in college football, you do not win. You have to start elevating your offense up into the 30s, maybe even the 40s nowadays, if you want to have, the type of season that we saw a few years ago when they won 10 games. That's just the sport. That's just the reality. Now, if you can field a good defense that forces turnovers and steals extra possessions away and gives the ball back to your offense to hopefully, start creating some of that separation on the scoreboard. Yeah, that's how that's complementary football, right? Strong special teams, aggressive defense that forces turnovers, but it all boils down to, is this offense going to be better this year than it has been the last couple seasons if this team's going to have any shot at making a bowl this year? Because the league and the sport in general, it's a very talented slate of opposing quarterbacks that they have to go up against. There's skill positions littered throughout the league. I don't know if you're counting on winning a bunch of 20 to 17 games this year. I don't know if that's the formula for success.
The formula for success. Let's end on that note with one last thought here, Nate. When you look at the schedule, and of course, there's so many variables here with injuries and unpredictable things that can happen. But by and large, Syracuse's non-conference slate: Ohio, Rutgers, Albany, Liberty. It's a good mix of good teams and a couple teams I think Syracuse frankly should beat. And then the ACC, of course, is that league where, you're going to have to win a few games in the league regardless if you're going to be in that 6-win territory and, be in the safety zone in terms of Dino Babers and his job status, fans feeling the progress was made and making a bowl game. I think, everybody would be good with that as a step forward from, a terrible season last year. I feel like Syracuse has got to win 3 or 4 non-conference games if they're going to accomplish that. Because I feel like if they only pull off 2, they're putting a lot of pressure on themselves in the ACC. Do you agree with that? Do you feel like 3 wins in non-conference, no matter how you slice it, is the way to go if this team's going to feel good going into conference play?
I think you're on the right track. I don't disagree with you. I will say it is imperative that they get off to a strong start, no matter how you slice it. I think we're going to know a lot about this team by the second game of the season, by the Rutgers game. I think we're going to know even more about this team after the 5th game of the season when they go down to Florida State, because Florida State is trying to do a quick rebuild with the transfer portal under Mike Norvell. Now their recruiting is eventually going to get there, and just look at the rankings. They're coming again if they kind of stay on this track that they're on. But Florida State is not the Florida State of the tail end of the Jimbo Fisher era, I'll say. It's not the Jameis Winston Florida State right now down there in Tallahassee. So I think that is one of those games that, if you're making progress in terms of being competitive in the league, that's a game that I have circled on. Okay, how's this season going to play out? But I'm with you. They have a lot of home games in the front half of the schedule. You mentioned the non-con with Ohio, Albany, Rutgers, and Liberty. That is not the murderer's row that we've seen in years past, particularly in 2017 when they had to go to LSU or when they were playing South Florida, even with Quentin Flowers and Sterling Gilbert was calling plays, or even,
Miami that year too. Yeah.
Or even just Notre Dame falling into that rotation of the way the ACC schedule it works out. They don't have that second clear-cut college football playoff contender on the schedule this year that they had in really the last few years. And, I think they got to take advantage of the schedule that they have. I think they got to take advantage of the home games that they have, getting Liberty at home on a Friday night, BC, Wake, Pitt. Those trio of quote unquote peer schools that you're always kind of measuring up against in the ACC. You have all three at home this year. So, handle your business at home, be competitive against, the teams that are in the middle of the pack of the ACC. And to me, that will show that you are developing the guys in your program and you have brighter days possibly waiting for you on the horizon.
Yeah, 5 of the first 7 are at home for the Orange. So both Nate and I have predicted Syracuse to win this game. You can check out our predictions on syracuse.com today. We'll have full coverage of the game on Saturday and, of course, Sunday, the day following. Just a programming reminder, we will be here live for Orange Weekly Thursdays at 1 o'clock, usually with a guest. Nate and myself will bring in some other members of the syracuse.com coverage team through the year as well. If you do miss it live, we can provide that archive for you pretty instantly, Nate. This is going to go up on YouTube. It'll be there on Facebook. We'll do a post on syracuse.com so you can check the YouTube of this when it's over, and we'll do that throughout the season. And another programming reminder for our folks in there, I see some of our regulars in the chat, after every Syracuse football game, pretty much right after it's over, be looking for that notification. I'll be live with you on Syracuse football postgame. We're going to try and bring you some different things this year, some live coverage from postgame press conferences and things of that nature. So we're excited about that. It's all brought to you by our friends at Krause Health. Nate, thank you. We'll be chatting throughout the year, of course, but appreciate you hanging with us. And thanks to our friends who are watching live today or watching the YouTube clip later. This has been Orange Weekly presented by Krause Health. We'll talk to you next time.